So one of the things I usually like to ask for is a go-by mold design of something they've done in the past that kind of shows the way they like things done.
Mm.
Because invariably, everybody does something differently. It could be simple things, but all those simple things make the difference between guys knowing what they're doing and being surprised by the design.
Welcome to MMT Chats. This episode brought to you by ISCAR with new ideas for machining intelligently. Hey, MMT followers, Christina Fugis with Mold Making Technology, and I am here for another quick MMT Chats. My guest today is Justin Jagels, who is owner and president of J Squared Design Services in Arkansas City, Kansas. And he's a newer mold making technology editorial advisory board member. Now, before we get started, don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to Mold Making's YouTube channel, hit the bell to get alerts when new videos are available. All right. Hello, Justin.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
All right. So
Excited.
let's start off with who J Squared Design Services is and what's your mission there?
J Square Design Services is a mold design contract group. I guess it's me, but there's a couple contractors that help me out. Our mission is kind of to help shops keep their shop full. Sometimes design can't keep up with the workload, but the shop can handle more work. That's because of inherent delays in the mold making process where you're waiting on this or that material or something like that. So it can move a little bit faster than design on individual projects, faster than design. And that kind of helps. So helping out design helps them move quickly through the process and meet lead times.
All right. So you're basically a mold design helping hand to companies
Yeah.
to move through projects. All right.
Yeah.
Share a little bit of your work history and your mold making experience and education.
I started out, I was a plastics engineering technology graduate from Pittsburgh State University here in Kansas. That was a really good education. I was one of the last ones in the design emphasis, so it was pretty much an engineering degree as far as classwork goes, but I don't have the engineer. I'm still an engineering technology degree. Then I started to work with Galaxy Technologies where they built molds and aerospace tools. So that's where I got most of my experience in molds. I worked there for a few years, went to a startup aerospace company for a little while, designed aerospace tooling, went to Cessna and designed some composite layup tools for them on a contract basis, and then came back to Galaxy before I went out on my own. So most of my experience has been through Galaxy, and then I've learned a lot at J Squared. My customers have been really good at helping me grow as an engineer. So that's been kind of my experience.
That's a lot. That you look so young, Justin, to have all that world experience, right? All right. So when did you decide to go on your own? Like what drove you to do that?
I was kind of getting bored
Hmm.
at, we did a lot of the same things at Galaxy, and I was able to kind of I looked up how much it cost to get the equipment I needed and the licenses I needed, and I found out I could do it. So I was like, well, might as well try it. If not, there's other places I can work.
That's a
So
that's a good attitude to have.
yeah, I just kind of went for it, and I'm glad I did, because I've been able to do a lot more different things, and have a lot more variety in my work by mold types, by mold industries, and everything like that. So it's been a positive move.
So it helps you from being bored, like you said earlier, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So you say that most of what you've learned has been from your time with mold builders and machinists on the shop floor and not really from other engineers. And that includes critical mold design, best practices to streamline manufacturing, and also mold maintenance and repair considerations. Can you give me an example or two of what you mean by that?
So I don't want to discredit the engineers that trained me, but the guys out on the shop floor, and this is a common problem with from what I understand with the industry, the machining industry as a whole, where there's a divide between engineers and mold makers. It's like a competition, and they don't communicate very well between the two of them. So a lot of things that could be made better don't get communicated back to engineering unless management forces it.
Yep.
I made it a point to get along as well as possible with my mold makers and show that I cared about what they had to say. So they would tell me things like, if an insert needed to be fitted, they would say, try to avoid faceted surfaces and make it as square as possible, so that way it's easy to fit. Just little things like that they don't necessarily. It's not necessarily groundbreaking in how it works, but it all helps make the process smoother. And that's probably the one thing about J Squared that I don't like, is I don't get as much of that interaction. I'm working mainly with engineers and management, but I always ask for all the feedback.
Okay. So the key
Everybody
is
makes
the key.
mistakes.
Yeah, the key is listening, right? Listening to the
Yes.
other people involved in the process.
Yes.
I'm always amazed when we started this magazine over 25 years ago, what you stated about that great divide. It's amazing that still exists when communication methods have gotten easier and easier. That's still a very traditional mindset in the manufacturing, in mold manufacturing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it has to do with ego more than anything. And that's hard to get rid of.
Yeah, that's true. It's a
And
culture thing.
yeah, some shops I'm sure are much better at it than others,
Oh, yeah,
but
absolutely.
and I think it goes in individually as well. Some people work better with others than others, so it's a
It's
skill
true.
everybody could develop to, even if your company culture is good, breaking down that barrier between engineering and shop floor personnel is very critical
Yeah, I
in every
agree.
way you can.
I agree. All right. You told me that with the understanding that lead time is second only to quality, you're committed to lessening or minimizing the time a job will spend in engineering backlog and also maximizing the time a shop has to build the mold tooling. Can you give me an example of how you actually accomplish that?
I'm pretty fast, and this kind of goes with something else you wanted to talk about, where it gets into company culture
Yes.
in a design. And so one of the things I usually like to ask for is a go-by mold design of something they've done in the past that kind of shows the way they like things done. Because invariably, everybody does something differently. It could be simple things, but all those simple things make the difference between guys knowing what they're doing and being surprised by the design. So that kind of that helps with the design process, because I'm able to move quicker and make more effective decisions based on the example design I was given, and I can eliminate back and forth in that process. And then also, I don't know, I'm fast. Um,
Hey, man, just put it simply, right? You're
and,
fast.
and I put in the time. Like I like to I'll give the worst possible lead time. Like, everything goes wrong. That's the lead time I give on my quotes. And then I go, if you need it hot, I will work nights and weekends and get it done. I mean, it's it's just a commitment to service is really what it is.
Got it. Got it.
And sometimes you don't get that in your salaried engineering staff.
Yeah, that's true. Like, think about it. You're motivated because you get paid to meet those deadlines being an outsourced guy, right? So
Yeah.
you're gonna work a little bit differently. I
Yeah.
agree with that. Can you share like what's the most interesting project you've worked on in the past couple years?
Probably the heart catheter.
Ooh,
That was probably, and not necessarily because of the molding concern, although it
okay.
did have an unscrewing core that had to be timed and multiple slides and stuff like that. But it was more just the the idea that I'm helping save lives. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
And there's been a number of them like that. It kind of varies, and you know how it is. You don't always remember all the cool
Yeah,
projects.
it's true. It's funny that most people bring up a medical project, and it's understandable. They're the ones that everybody, even on the emotional level, we can all identify with the importance of those types of products. So
Hmm.
it doesn't surprise me that you picked
Hmm.
that one out.
Yeah.
So,
And it,
do you feel comfortable sharing whose software you use?
well, I've got a little bit of a software addiction.
Okay. Ooh.
So I use Creo Parametric. That's kind of like my mainline software. That's
Okay.
what I'm the most comfortable with. I also own a license of CATIA V5, and that's what I do. I do some aerospace design work, which actually molds have been a little slower recently. So aerospace design work has kept me busy,
Okay.
mainly composite layup tooling and mill fixtures and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then SolidWorks.
Okay.
So I have about 5 to 10 years of experience, not necessarily years of experience, hours worth of experience,
Okay.
because I've always been kind of that driven person that even when I had a salary job, I was working overtime just to get stuff done because I wanted to meet my deadlines and everything. And well, just the other night, I had a deadline and I was behind, and I worked for 36 hours straight and then checked it the next day.
Right. That right there is an addiction to work. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Although I can relate to that. When something needs to get done, there are certain personalities that are just going to push through to do what you got to do to get it done. Make it
Yep.
happen, right? All right. Can
Yep.
we segue over to when you and I first met? I think we met virtually. I think it was like a connection through LinkedIn, and you were talking about this apprenticeship, this not-for-profit apprenticeship organization that you wanted to launch. Can you give us a quick snapshot of a little bit of the background of where that came from, and where does that stand today?
When you work with a customer, you don't just do the job and that's it. You talk to them. And a consistent problem that I've been hearing is staffing. And it's not just staffing in, in general, but it's skilled trades, specifically
Yep.
mold making. And most of their mold makers are in their 50s and 60s. So in 10 to 20 years, we're not going to have any US mold makers
Ugh.
unless we start training.
Yes.
Some places have apprenticeship programs, but a lot of places view it as difficult or costly to start. The first thing I looked at was trying to get my college. They picked up a 2-year degree in plastics processing. I was hoping they could pick up a 2-year degree in mold making. They have the manufacturing equipment. They would just need the staff to train people. But unfortunately, they are having trouble with recruitment, and enrollment is down in across the school. So starting new programs isn't exactly something they can do. And so I was looking for ways to try to jumpstart that. The apprenticeship program idea came up. It didn't work out quite the way I anticipated. I mean, well, people want to help, but they don't want to go out of their way to help.
Yeah. Or you know what it is? Yeah, that's true. Well, we do a lot of talking, right? But not a lot
Yeah.
of action sometimes.
So I got a little bit discouraged. I have been busy. I had some health problems, so I've just been I haven't had a chance to work on it. But I really would like to get something started on that, and I'm going to get back into it. One of the things I'm starting out with right now is trying to get into high schools to speak with them about manufacturing, and that's something you see a number of other mold making companies
Yep.
doing, but not everyone's doing it. If we get more people doing it, more kids will get excited about manufacturing. And even if they don't go into mold making, they may go into machining and then end up in mold making.
True. Yep. It's all about that
So,
exposure.
yes,
Yep.
yes. We're US manufacturing in general is coming back, but it's still weak.
Yep.
So we need to strengthen it.
Yep.
In general.
All right. Well, keep me in the loop on that. If I can help in any way to promote or even to connect some people, I want to. The brand definitely wants to help with that.
Yeah, I would say if anybody wants to reach out to me and has any interest in it, maybe you want to start your own apprenticeship program or something like that. I've got some resources that were given to me that would help people do it.
Okay.
So maybe even in lieu of a national apprenticeship program, we can do something where we help you get started with an apprenticeship program, help you write it, and get started with it.
All right. I like that. Okay. Let's go back a little bit. Let's look about your whole career, just specifically mold making. What would you say is the most significant change in the industry within your career?
What I saw, and this is from my experience at Galaxy, is the change, and this also goes to J Squared as well, because there's still a lot of companies out there that still fit their inserts. There's been a change to precision manufacturing where inserts are interchangeable and you can just build spare tooling. I'm not saying that didn't happen for a very long time, but it's becoming more common. And I kind of see things shifting a little bit in terms of how a mold maker is viewed and what their tasks are, and maybe even a split between what a mold maker is. So I see a mold maker starting to be a skilled machinist, because in order to meet those tolerances, you have to know how the mold interacts and everything like that. So a skilled mold maker would make a great machinist to make those precise parts. I mean, some like customers have tolerances 2/10, 4/10, on a large span, and you can't just, set some guy up on a CNC and from the industry and hope he does that. That's not realistic. It's your equipment, and it's also the operator.
Yeah.
And how well they do setups and everything like that. And
machining
then,
ability. Yeah.
Yes, that skill. And a lot of those guys have that. And I can see that shift from, like, I saw it at Galaxy. The best work came out of the mold maker that was at the machine.
Yep. Yeah. It's an important skill set. So that's a segue nicely into my next question, which was, how do you define the mold builder of the future? All right. So outside of this precision machining abilities they have to have, are there other characteristics, qualities, or skill sets that you think that mold builder of the future is going to have to keep this industry moving forward?
See, from what I see, mold maker of the future splits into two categories: the mold maker machinist, and then the mold maker project manager.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
And basically they're not just an assembler, but if the mold maker machinist does their job correctly, the mold goes together a lot easier, and they're not sitting there trying to make adjustments and stuff like that. I mean, maybe if the designer made a mistake. No. Yeah, I see that splitting into two roles there.
Okay.
And there may be, I'm sure in smaller shops, the same guy will wear both hats. But that project management has always been a big thing. But lead time is more in mind for a mold maker than it was before.
Oh, yeah.
Like, management was usually the ones concerned with lead time. But now the mold maker has to be more concerned with it.
On top of that,
it's their job.
Interesting.
Their
All right.
job to manage the time.
Okay. Last but not least, you told me that you're married to an obstetric nurse, right?
Yep.
And that you both have a plastic products that you hope to launch.
Yes.
For nurses. So tell me about that. That's so interesting.
So this is it. And I've made it, optimized it for 3D printing because I wanted to get the startup costs out of the way. I wanted to minimize my startup costs to where I knew it would sell. And right now we're working on marketing
Well, what is it?
And I've made about 40 or 50 of these things,
Okay.
and we're trying to get the marketing pitch worked out correctly and exactly where we're going to sell it. It's a device used to train nurses on the cervical thickness and diameter
Oh,
during the birthing process. So it's a very niche market.
okay.
It's not something you can just advertise to nurses. You have to hit the right subsegment of nurses.
Okay.
And she kind of came up with it, and I, of course, was like, I can design that in 5 minutes.
What a great thing to have in a spouse, right? You come up with
Yeah.
something and you can design it. Very interesting. So all right, so now you're marketing. So what 3D printing did you use?
FDM.
Okay. And
I bought some. They were named as commercial printers from a hobbyist brand, so
okay.
they're good printers. They were more expensive than the normal hobbyist printer, but they're still not crazy expensive.
Okay.
Not in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Got it. So
So
you're hoping, all right, so once you get the marketing plan and figure out who the target audience is, I mean, what are your hopes for that product?
I don't expect to get rich off of it
Mm-hmm.
because it's a very niche market and stuff like that. But I think the main reason is just to help new nurses
I love it.
because there's not a whole lot of training out there for nurses. They kind of get thrown into at least for different specialties.
Okay.
They kind of get thrown into the ringer, and at least that's how it was for everywhere my wife has worked. And I could see it as helpful for new nursing students and stuff like that need to have that hands-on feel, because it's not something you can read from a textbook. It's something you have to be able to feel.
Got it. You do realize that what you're describing is an awful lot like what we need in the mold making field in terms of training and hands-on training. So I think it's an awesome note to end this interview on, is that your work experience and passion as a mold designer has literally translated to your personal life with your wife and her job, and helping a whole other industry by designing a product, right, to help a whole other industry train up. Your worlds have just come together, Justin. How beautiful is that? All right.
It's been fun.
That's great. Well, on that note, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope everybody out there has gotten a little better of a snapshot of who you are. It's so wonderful to have someone like you on the board to offer your experience and insight. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Stay safe, stay informed, and stay inspired.